Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again to hear a second excerpt from the Jeremy Chronicles. If this is your first time watching, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you like what you hear, please go back and watch the video I posted on Monday, where I read actually two excerpts from an earlier section of the novel. In that video, I blabbed for a really long time, giving a lot of introductory background, that's what I want to say. There's a lot of introductory setup and some anecdotes. I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here, but some of you may be wondering what inspired you to title your novel The Jeremy Chronicles? Well, honestly, Wendy Wasserstein. I love the Heidi Chronicles specifically. I think it's a wonderful character study, and it's so beautifully moving and searching. And I've always had an affinity for one of the Wendy Wasserstein protagonists. And I've always just been able to identify with her and just the characters that she puts at the center of her plays. So I paid homage to that. And in fact, in my epigraph, I have a line from the Heidi Chronicles that I put before the novel even begins. It is, "I want to know you all my life. If we can't marry, let's be great friends." You can see that. Yeah. So that's where that comes from. And this story, it's a chronicle. It's kind of inelegant, as is life. There's one writer colleague I'm thinking of in particular who really admires elegance in writing. This is a very inelegant work. So I also thought naming it, putting chronicle in the title, it may suggest to the reader that, okay, this is maybe a little bit different from a traditional fictional narrative. So let's move on into the section we're going to hear today. It's from part 2. Now, the section I read yesterday was from part 1. Part 1 is, of the 5 parts of the novel, part 1 is, at this point, the most polished, in quotes. Part 2 is by far the messiest right now. I have not even finished part 2. I don't write in order, by the way. I tend to kind of jump around. And during the pandemic, when the lockdown first started back in March, I made myself go in order. And then I finally got to a point where I can't. I need to jump around and go back to where I'm feeling inspired at the moment. The section I'm going to read today, I actually had thought about sharing with you way back in probably March or April, but we're going to hear it now. We learned in part 1 that Jeremy is an aspiring fiction writer. And he is, in part 1, preparing to go to Massachusetts for 3 months to kind of restart his life. He thinks of it as sort of a rebirth in his life. He's gotten a job music directing a production of The World Goes Round, which it's a Kander and Ebb musical, for those who don't know. And it pays him well, and it's kind of an opportunity for him to get away from the soul-murdering job he had and to do what he really wants to do and reposition his career. And he has a lot of ambivalence about going because it means leaving his home in Georgia for 3 months. And he goes up thinking, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to take the paycheck. I'll make the most of it. And while he's up in Massachusetts, he makes a connection, a long-distance connection that he was not expecting to make with a guy named Jeremiah. And these Jeremy and Jeremiah, they're kind of cut from the same cloth, almost uncannily so in some ways. And there's a great deal of simpatico, mutual simpatico. And the excerpt I'm going to read comes from fairly early on in their I don't know what the best word to use is, correspondence, because it is long distance. They meet online, they text, they talk on the phone a lot, and they really very quickly, in a very short amount of time, come to develop an understanding and this connection. And as I kind of touched upon the other day in the other video, the idea of understanding one another and not judging is the world for Jeremy. And in Jeremiah, he has met someone who he feels really understands him and does not judge him. So, this excerpt, Jeremy has sent Jeremiah drafts of fiction that he's written, and Jeremiah just becomes this wonderful, supportive champion of Jeremy. And writers, I think, will understand this, that finding a person, another writer, or if not a writer, someone who can speak to you about your writing in a way that is loving, that is, they praise you when they need to, and they prod you when they need to, and they want you to be the best that you can be. It's very, very difficult to find somebody who can be that for a writer. It's very difficult. Because when you're writing, it's very sensitive. It's a part of you. And it's like dating, really, finding somebody who really understands what you're trying to do, can support you and pat you on the back when they need to, and tell you, this isn't working and this is why, and to do it in a loving way. That's very hard. And it's very hard to find. So this little excerpt, this is rougher than the thing I read yesterday. Or the thing I posted yesterday, because it's the same day that I'm making these videos. This is a bit rougher. I have more notes and marks and things I'm not sure about, little details. We're going to kind of move beyond that again. But I just want to share with you this little episode that happens that helps deepen that connection, and I think fellow writers especially will identify with this. Friday, April 22nd, 2016, is a day in the Chronicles of Jeremy that stands out above many others, although its actual events were but any other ordinary day. I had the day off from rehearsal, and it was the first weekend after Wonderettes closed that I did not have a performance. I slept until after 4 p.m. that day. A beautiful, sunny day, not too warm, not too cool, just simply perfect. I stopped at Barnes & Noble and purchased the original 1960 off-Broadway cast recording of The Fantastics, the 2015 Broadway revival cast recording of The Color Purple, and yes, the 2015 Broadway revival cast recording of Fiddler on the Roof. Still ever the cast album completist, and stopped at a local place for a turkey sub. While I was there, I saw the familiar text notification of Jeremiah. Seeing his name attached to a new text message never ceased to make me smile, and while most anyone else's daily text messages might become tiresome, such was never the case with Jeremiah. Hope you are having a great day, and I hope that you are finding the words today. My day just got better, I texted back. And I'm going to do some writing soon. As I was eating my dinner, Jeremiah texted, "So how's the writing coming? Am I bothering you? LOL." As if. Jeremiah could never bother me. I suggested that Jeremiah read the latest story I sent him, while I went to Wegmans to do some writing, Then we could talk about it later that night. Assignment accepted. Around 9 o'clock that evening, Jeremiah texted that he had drifted to sleep while reading, though not a testament to my writing, he was quick to assure. And he did his typical apology for not having finished reading my story. As I did my grocery shopping, Jeremiah texted me with a few questions he had about the story, then asked if he could call me, as he had a thought that he did not feel comfortable putting into a text message, as if it was too forward, too prescriptive to impart if not presented during a person-to-person conversation. "Hey, so I was wondering something, but I don't want you to get mad," he said over the phone. "Okay? I don't even know if I should say this. If this is too forward of me, I apologize. Just let me know if I'm out of line." "It's okay," I assured him. "What is your question?" Jeremiah still felt it necessary to justify himself, to preface what he believed was an inappropriate crossing of the line between reader and author. "I love what you've written. I love so much of what you've written," he continued. "It's really good, like really, really good. And I just want to see you succeed. But there are a few things in here that just don't make any sense to me." "What are they?" I asked, understanding full well that the work was far from perfect. "I mean, Noah talks so much about wanting to do theater, but he never actually goes and does anything about it. And I wondered why." It was an astute observation, and his question was absolutely legitimate. It was not the first time someone had posed this very question to me, but it was the first time that the question had been asked with such sensitivity, with such understanding for the work that had gone into writing the story. It was the first time the question had been asked with a level of honest championing of the work itself, out of a genuine, open-hearted desire to see the work become the best that it can possibly be. There was not an ounce of motivation to boost one's ego with one's superior knowledge of the literary process in the manner in which Jeremiah approached and offered his criticism, which meant more to me than I believe he ever knew. "That's a really good point you make, Jeremiah. I've been struggling with that aspect of the story myself. I've been trying to figure out how Noah can even consider pursuing any kind of theater work when he is stuck working at the grocery store. He just doesn't have any time to do it. And with the crazy hours that he ends up working, he really can't even make theater an option at that point in his life. So that's why he never pursues it in the story." I see," Jeremiah non-judgmentally acknowledged. "And that's what it was like when I worked at Publix. I literally could not even consider doing theater because there was no time in which to do it." "Okay, Jeremiah considered what I had just said, something else I immediately appreciated about him. He did not pounce on my contribution to the discussion, instantly dismissing my thought process as faulty or flawed. He listened to my perspective, to my point of view, to ascertain how my intent could best serve the story I was trying to tell. After a few moments of thought, he continued. "Okay, I have another question. I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions," he added with his typical self-effacing nature. "I wonder if there's some way Noah could try to get time off from work or something. Maybe there's some way that he could try to request time off or something so he can go be in a play, and they don't give him the time off." Jeremiah's tendency toward upspeak drenched his voice as he offered his suggestions, not only asking me the question, but asking himself if it even made sense, or even if he should be making these suggestions at all. "I just think that we hear so much about Noah wanting to be an actor again because he misses doing plays so much, and he can't do that because he's stuck at the store. But I think we need to see him try to go back to being an actor, and he's not able to do it. And then it makes it that much more tragic that his job at the store holds him back from doing the things that he really loves." He paused for a moment as I processed his very well-considered thoughts. "Does that make any sense?" he added as a coda. His uncertainty about whether anything he said was worthy of consideration at all only made me admire and respect Jeremiah all the more. There was no kind of surety of manner dripping with condescension. Jeremiah himself did not even know if his ideas were good ones. He just thought that they were ideas to consider, that he could possibly bring the work up to a higher level, but he had no illusions of grandeur, no false delusions that he was the expert and I was the mere idiot of my own creation. I'm sorry if I went too far, he added after I said nothing for what, to him, may have seemed an eternity, although in actuality it was probably barely a millisecond. No, you didn't at all, I assured him. I appreciated Jeremiah's frequent need for assurance. It made me feel better about myself, remembering the times when I have been in desperate need of an inordinate amount of assurance. I really appreciate that you said that, and I think that's a really good suggestion that you make. Really? Jeremiah seemed astonished. Yes, it was. Actually, I have a few questions for you. As I worked my way through Wegmans, filling my cart with the week's groceries, I continued our discussion on how to make the story better. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on the section about Renee. Did she come off as a narcissist to you? In the story, there is a scene where a frequent customer named Renee strikes up a conversation with Noah as he rings up her groceries. Renee mentions that she is the owner of a local bookstore and coffee shop, and she suggests that Noah come work at her bookstore. Noah is delighted by the idea, but when he attempts to give notice to the big corporate store where he works, they lure him to stay with the promise of more money and a swift promotion. Noah, feeling cornered, takes the extra money and stays at the store in the job that he hates. No, I didn't really see her as a narcissist, Jeremiah offered. Why do you ask? I told him that when Lawrence read the story, one of his notes was that Renee's behavior was nothing but narcissistic, and he found her character to be a weak deus ex machina. At the end of the story, Noah does indeed break free from the big supermarket and take Renee up on her offer. I could trust that Jeremiah would be honest one way or the other, and now I was desperately eager to hear his opinion. Lawrence, astute and opinionated as he is, does have a tendency to view narcissism in situations where it does not exist, and I never viewed Renee's repeated offers to Noah in my story as anything but a genuine desire to give Noah a more pleasant employment option. After I explained this to Jeremiah, he again considered his response. Well, I don't really see it that way, but I can see why someone might say that. He elaborated. I think what we need to see is that Renee has something appealing to offer Noah, something that Publix can't offer him. I mean, I think we know that Noah wants to go work for her because she's not a big corporation, but what is it that she has that she can really offer him? I think Noah wants to work at Renee's bookstore because it's more personal. Right. And I think what Renee can offer Noah, which Publix can't, is flexibility. She can give him the time off that Noah needs so he can do his acting. Yes! I was excited that Jeremiah and I were engaging in this brainstorm, the simpatico of connection, of thoughts, of excitement and compassion about the process was a match made in heaven. You know, Jeremiah added, this thought apparently having just entered his head. Maybe this is where you can address that narcissism note that your friend gave you. Before Renee tells Noah about the bookstore, let us see her take an interest in Noah personally in some way. Maybe somehow they get to talking about theater and she mentions to Noah that she saw an audition notice for something that Noah may be interested in. And that's where you can show us that Renee has something to offer that Publix does not. If Noah goes to work at the bookstore, he will have the flexibility to take time off to go audition for the play. You know what I mean? I do. It's just a suggestion. But I mean, Jer, you have so much good that you've written. It's so good. And I would hate for it not to succeed just because it hasn't reached its greatest potential. I'm sorry if I went too far. No, you didn't go too far at all. Thank you so much. Jeremiah needed to have something to eat, and I needed to finish up my grocery shopping. I assured him that I would give him a call once I got to my parents' house and put away my groceries. Once I did so, I gave him a call and began what was to become another memorable phone call in the Chronicles of Jeremy. So that's that section of part 2. This section is very rough. It's the section that, writing it, I've had the greatest challenge getting through, because it covers the greatest expanse of time. And there's going to be a lot in the editorial process, even my personal editorial process, once I have a full finished first draft, of paring down, a lot of cutting. It's quite long, and I don't think it needs every episode that's in it right now. But that's something that I'm going to wait and see once I have a mostly finished manuscript. But shaping part 2 has always been one of the big challenges in getting through this whole process. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think maybe it rings more true to writers, but it's a moment, I think, where we show another moment where Jeremiah doesn't judge Jeremy, and he gives Jeremy exactly what he needs. He coddles him just enough, but he genuinely is trying to help him and not condescend to him. And once I had that down, I realized that this was an important episode in the development of their connection. So thank you again for watching. Tomorrow I'll post the third and final video for the week. But I hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Stay sane. We'll see you next time.